So, ladies and gentlemen, Alec Baldwin, for those that don't know, just a real quick recap. Back in 2021, sorry, I was going to say 2022, but it's 2021, a long time ago. Alec Baldwin shot someone, a cinematographer on a film set. I sort of, it's not funny, but it's just so outlandish to hear this thing. Shot a cinematographer on a film set, fatally wounding her. And also wounding the director, Joel Souza. So this is Helena Hutchins, the cinematographer, is dead. And the director, Joel Souza, is obviously still alive. Now, Alec Baldwin, and so this has been a long run-in situation. Alec Baldwin, the first assistant director, and the armorer have all been sort of caught in the crosshairs of all of this nonsense that's gone around the houses. Alec Baldwin's done ridiculously awful interviews where he's crying but accepting no culpability or no, I don't feel guilty, blah, 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 all this kind of nonsense. And now the armorer has been charged. She's currently in jail. Alec Baldwin is facing an involuntary manslaughter charge, but he's currently going, no, we need that tossed for some quite interesting reasons, actually. And it goes into the discussion that the gun, the Colt 45, had been hit with a mallet several times by government officials, so it's broken. So essentially, no gun, no crime. You've tampered with evidence. And this was apparently, and this is like a he said, she said scenario. We'll look at it a little bit more closely. But this is what the FBI was supposedly doing when they were trying to test whether it would have had to have, the trigger pulled, for it to fire, or the hammer pulled back for it to fire. Apparently, it fell up into pieces. Don't really understand this entire situation. I'm not a gunman, although I know we do have Nick on here who will be able to discuss why they would probably hit it with a mallet. Yeah. But yeah, let's take a look first and foremost at what's going on. So that's getting everyone up to speed. So Alec Baldwin has an involuntary manslaughter trial ahead of himself, and obviously he's trying to get it tossed. For these reasons, because the state does not allege that Baldwin was aware of any level of risk, let alone a substantial risk, that the gun was loaded with live ammunition, he is innocent as a matter of law. Okay. The state has not alleged facts that constitute a crime. Even taking every allegation that the state has presented as true solely for the purposes of this motion, defendant Alec Baldwin could not have been aware of a substantial risk that his alleged actions could cause the death of Helena Hutchins, because he had no reason to believe that the firearm contained live ammunition. But I would say surely that's the purpose of involuntary manslaughter. I mean, manslaughter alone is the accidental death. I mean, involuntary manslaughter is, I guess, a step further. I mean, I don't know. I'm not litigiously minded in this way, so I don't know how they're defining it in law.
Yeah,
but just definitionally, terms would say that sounds okay.
Yeah, and there's a reason why there's involuntary manslaughter. It's the unintentional killing of a person while committing, the unlawful act of murdering somebody. So
yeah, quite a bizarre. But there's more. This story continues. Okay, it gets weirder. So the state may assert that Baldwin acted with criminal negligence because he did not inspect the firearm after the designated safety professionals had already done so. Putting aside the fact that the state already took the opposite position at Gutierrez Reed's trial, and that, regardless, this argument doesn't change the absence of Baldwin's subjective awareness of a substantial risk to human life on the set. That does make sense if they've changed it from Hannah Gutierrez Reed. But then there's this. And this I don't understand. So apparently, it's destruction of evidence. They filed it. It's destruction of evidence. The government took the FBI, took the most critical evidence in this case, the firearm, and destroyed it by repeatedly and pointlessly striking it with a mallet. Nick, you like guns. Why would they hit it with a mallet? If they did this?
Because you like guns.
They are idiots. I mean, I guess they were like, let's hit this thing with the mallet and see if it just fires on its own.
Get a misfire, yeah.
But because basically that's what Alec Baldwin was trying to claim, was that basically he didn't pull the trigger. The gun just happened to go off while he was pointing it in her direction. Well, the type of firearm he was using is not like a typical modern day firearm. It's an old Western 6-shooter revolver pistol. You have to actually cock it back and then pull the trigger every single time. So there's no accidentally going off of anything. But the FBI is idiots. You didn't have to beat the thing with a mallet or a hammer or anything else to figure that out. It's just the type of gun that it is. So I don't know.
How strange.
Government's dumb.
Well, there's more, and it gets weirder. So government agents knew that the firearm would not survive their clumsy tests intact. They said so explicitly in emails. Remember, this is a filing. This is destruction of evidence filing in court. But at the insistence of prosecutors eager to prove a celebrity's guilt, they nevertheless blundered ahead without preserving the original state of the firearm through photographs, video, or other means. Without informing Baldwin or his counsel, they were conducting destructive testing. And without any realistic prospect that bludgeoning the gun would reveal whether Baldwin had pulled the trigger on the day of the accident. Under time-honored principles of due process, the charges must be dismissed. The law is clear. The government may not knowingly deprive the defense of potentially useful evidence by destroying it. Indeed, even where the government acts with mere negligence, let alone the intentional ineptitude on display here, the destruction of apparently exculpatory evidence violates due process. It is difficult to find a reported decision with a more egregious constellation of facts, premeditated destruction of the key evidence by government agents for no justifiable reason, at the insistence of prosecutors determined to prove Baldwin's guilt, and without even the most rudimentary efforts to document the original condition of that evidence. That's pretty damning.
Yeah.
But here's the he said, she said scenario. So prosecutors have asserted that the gun was not destroyed in FBI testing, and claims to the contrary are posturing by the defense. The special prosecutor said that Baldwin and his lawyers have engaged in relentless misleading statements and false claims in the case, citing materials supposedly leaked to the media, a plea deal gone south, and a strong arming of documentary subjects. The prosecutors keep coming back what they call Baldwin's complete lack of concern for the safety of those around him on the deeply troubled Russ set, which is well documented, actually. So, yeah, he's been recharged with involuntary manslaughter 4 months ago, and he wants it to be tossed out before he goes. Does seem like he's clutching at straws, but having followed this case, it's been interesting. I mean, I don't know where I sit on it overall. And if we're now into a he said, she said with respect to whether the gun was destroyed or not. But we had heard it had to be put back together, reconstructed at one point. Whether this was just them leaking it to the media or not, who knows? Bo, I go for your comments on this.
Okay, so bunch of things to say. First of all, involuntary manslaughter. I mean, it's like I don't know, maybe you had a heart attack whilst at the wheel of a lorry and ploughed into some people. It really wasn't your fault. It genuinely wasn't your fault, but nonetheless, you killed people. You know, so the other thing is, I believe he was the executive producer, or he owns the production company or something along those lines.
He is an executive producer. He's the star. He was one of the only producers around on set as well. And yeah, he's one of the key sort of factors in this even being made.
So he's not just an actor and someone put a gun in his hand. It's not just that. It's much more than that.
He had a lot of responsibility on that set.
I believe he's sort of legally culpable at that level of production seniority. I mean, do you remember? I don't know if you know Noel Edmonds, our two American friends here may not even have ever heard of Noel Edmonds, but he's a British TV personality. Years ago, in the 70s or the 80s, there was a thing called the Late Breakfast Show, I think it was called, and they would do stunts on that, and a guy died in that. They had him up in a box or up on in a really high up off the ground with a crane, and an accident happened. It fell, and the guy died. And Noel Edmonds wasn't just a presenter; he was also like the producer, or he owned the production company or whatever. And yeah, he was sort of the buck got to stop somewhere. beyond
Yeah.
the actual safety person. Beyond that, the buck stops somewhere. I believe it is with Baldwin. So having said all of that, the FBI destruction of, so it is a he said, she said thing. So let's see if it goes to court, which I hope it does. I think it will. Not that I really know, but if and when it does, then we'll see if that's even true or not. Now, if it is true that the FBI did that, it's absolutely absurd. I've never heard of anything so ridiculous in all my life. One thing to test something to destruction, okay, that's a thing, you know, like in race, in like Formula One research and development, you test an engine until it blows up deliberately. Okay, that's a thing, right? You want to stress something until it breaks. But if you haven't taken all the evidence and pictures and all that sort of thing beforehand, then that is completely mental and insane, and something else would be going on. If this is true, if that is what the FBI had done, then it makes me think that it's beyond competence. It's very deliberate. But then maybe this is a bit spicy, but I'm sitting in England, so I won't worry too much. The FBI are one of the most corrupt organizations ever to have existed. They only exist in order to pervert justice, as far as I'm concerned. Going back to J. Edgar Hoover, going back to Inception, there are a political wing of the state, of the establishment, and so yeah, they've done much more absurd and disgusting things than this in the past.
So what is it that's roaming around now at the moment? Is it Patriot Front or whatever it is that's bloody around, and like clearly feds? You're clearly feds. You're very clearly the feds. Like, no one is buying it. Like, you're very clearly the feds. Right? Like, my God, absolutely outrageous.
The FBI want to be thought of as like a police organ. They're not the police. They're not the police. They're a wing of the intelligence services. Like in Britain, we have MI5, sort of an internal intelligence service. And so the deepest, darkest, nastiest stuff is their game, is their business. And so I don't trust the FBI as far as I can throw. If I was ever up on federal charges in America and being prosecuted by the FBI, I'd be terrified. There's literally nothing they would not do. The string of weird stuff they've done through the decades is absolutely reprehensible. So, but they may not have done that. It may just be his lawyers, Baldwin's lawyers, are just saying that. And in fact, when it comes out in court, that no such thing has ever happened. That has actually happened. But one last thing I would say, sort of in defense of Baldwin's team, if you can get a trial thrown out before it starts, you would. That's what you're being paid to do, is to get your guy off, right? So I sort of don't blame them for trying it. That's their job. They're being paid to get him off whatever it takes. Defense lawyers are amoral by definition. They don't care whether he's guilty or anything. Yeah, right. Yeah, you have to be. That is your job. Anyway, there's more to say, but I'll let somebody else speak for a moment.
Well, I'll just continue where Bo left off. I mean, in pursuit of their obligation to their client, they obviously are, working their hardest to, circumvent a charge of guilty at the end of the day. But here's something I added in the back, and I'll add to the conversation now. This set was a hot mess. It was a hot mess before we even got to this point. In fact, on the very day, just a few hours before, half the camera crew walked off. 6 of the camera crew just said, F it. This place sucks. The conditions are terrible. This is being poorly run, and bailed. So, when you start to lose, a ton of people, that's not a good sign for your production. You had lots of complaints about the long hours, long commutes, because they couldn't put these people anywhere close to on site. They didn't want to, extend the budget for trailers and other things that would have kept people kind of living in a mini city like they do for a lot of other mid-sized to large-sized productions. And all of this was, on a shoot that was plagued by a lot of other problems, including a misfire a few days before that.
Multiple misfires, apparently, and people using the guns to do like
target shooting.
Like target practice stuff. Like what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you're really supposed to not do that kind of thing with any of the prop weapons. So I mean, there's a lot here. So because he is an executive producer, the scope. It depends on the scope of his responsibilities, but the fact that they were losing people left and right, it wasn't a good environment. I'm going to use a leftist word. It was a toxic environment. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, a little hardcore leftist word for you, toxic. Yeah, he's just definitely. I mean, again, there's some level of culpability. Whether or not it rises to criminal is going to be decided by a jury of his peers, and that's where we're at.
Nick, you got anything else to add to this? Now you've heard the full shebang of it all.
I mean, bone culture. I agree with what they're saying. They made some good points. The thing is, they were on a movie set. He was the producer. He bears a lot of responsibility in this. This is not anything similar to what happened with Brandon Lee on the set of The Crow, which is probably one of the most famous on-set, deaths that we've gotten in movie history. The people involved in that weren't the producers and had a lot more responsibility on set, like Alec Baldwin did on the set of Rust here. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on the whole thing, as far as whether or not he should be taking the court over this. Should he have to pay money? Yeah, 100%. I mean, Brandon Lee's mother successfully sued the filmmakers of The Crow for an undisclosed amount that's never actually been revealed. And I could totally see the family suing, which I think they already have, and I think they won that case, didn't they?
Yeah. So, they made like a settlement. They did sue, then they made a settlement, but then there's like another civil case that's it's all over the place, to be fair.
Yeah.
They did initially sue, and then there was like a settlement agreement moving forwards. And I think the husband essentially got buyer's remorse, for lack of a better phrase, for the settlement agreement, because it was basically, we're going to give you this much money and then residuals from the movie or something like that. They've not sold the movie. Like the movie's finished, but it's not sold, and it's never
residuals from the movie. Like it's going to make so much money.
Well, yeah, exactly. But now, since that's happened, he's been interviewed with respect to Alec Baldwin and involuntary manslaughter charge and stuff, and he's very much changed his tune. He's like, he seems pretty much pro Alec Baldwin going down. So it does seem like he's had a case of, again, buyer's remorse. A terrible phrase to use, but it's still the same. It applies here. So yeah, it's interesting stuff. We will, of course, follow this and see what happens. It's been an interesting one to follow. I mean, it's taken a long time. 2021. We're now in 2024, and it's still not resolved. I mean, this has got to be one of the slowest cases of someone's been killed going, to be fair, especially with the high-profile people involved. You'd expect it to be resolved much, much quicker, but no, very slow.
It was a lot of these things that came along when the global crisis was happening, and these directives that were on these sets and things like that definitely had some influence in some of the decision making around this, because the set was managed by all those restrictions. Even though in New Mexico, I don't know that they're obligated to comply. I mean, maybe perhaps under guild rules, but other than that, there were so many problems. Again, you're right. This is taking a ridiculously long period of time. It should have been well resolved. I mean, even Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer who was, found guilty and sentenced to 18 months. Her case took forever too. Everybody was dragging their feet on this, and including the state of New Mexico. So,
and Alec Baldwin refusing to give up his phone and stuff like that. But yeah,
it's interesting the FBI are dragging their feet, or the authorities, the Justice Department perhaps, that actually decide if charges should be brought. I don't know if it's actual FBI that do it. Either way, there will be all sorts of politics going on. But it's funny, the FBI sometimes for example, I don't know, the Las Vegas shooter, make up their mind within hours exactly what's happened and what hasn't happened,
Yeah.
or make up their mind who hijacked the planes on 9/11 within hours. You know, so it's extremely odd.
So
But a couple of
they
things
can do it when
right.
do it when they want to. It seems.
Now, of course, Baldwin is sort of a shill for the uni party, isn't he? The regime. So if they want to sort of get him off, it's like dead bodies being found on the Obama residences. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about any sort of illegal servers in Hillary Clinton's bathroom. You don't know about the dead chef found at the Obama home. Yeah. They got a beachfront home, and one of their chef was just his dead body was found there. But yeah, exactly. Don't worry about it. Move on. It didn't happen.
Wow.
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas if they want to bang you up, like the January 6th guys, they'll put you in prison for 20 or 30 years for letting a policeman usher you round a building. You know, so it's all there's no real justice. But the other thing to say is like about a very, very toxic environment, a problematic environment on set. You know, it's not unheard of or even all that rare for people to be killed during filming. I think on Ben-Hur, a guy died in a chariot crash. I think they actually used the footage in the final edit of the film. There's a very, very horrible incident on the early 80s Twilight Zone, the movie, where a couple of kids were chopped to bits by a helicopter. Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a black stunt rider woman was killed on the set of Deadpool 2 in like 2017. So people die on set. It happens, right?
But it doesn't happen with guns. So that's the thing that's quite unusual. Rare. So the last time this happened, it was with Brandon Lee.
But that was a legitimate actual accident, right?
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, that's the last time someone got killed with a gun.
Yeah,
on a film set.
Yeah, there was no way that they would have known that there was a fragment of the previous round in the barrel that turned into a projectile. So you know, it, like I said, I mean, it is what it is. But like I said, I guess the real question is, and I'll ask you guys: do we feel bad for Alec Baldwin?
Oh no, I don't feel bad for him. I felt bad for him being harassed by that fat black woman in wherever it was. Like that was just like, what was like? She was like, "Say free Palestine, Alec. Say free Palestine. You killed that woman, didn't you? Say free Palestine. I'll leave you alone." I was like, like I would bitch slap you. Get out of my face if that was me. Like really, you know, he was very restrained. I feel sorry for him for things like that, but I don't necessarily feel sorry in this particular situation. This is a scenario where no one's a winner. You know, no one's a winner in this scenario because, of course, someone's dead. You know, there's a boy now without a mother. You know, there's a husband without a wife. And Alec Baldwin did this weird pity tour instantly. It was all very strange. So I don't feel sorry for him, no.
Yeah, I feel the same way, basically. Let's not lose sight that a real human being, innocent human being is now dead. Yeah, that family sort of forever ruined, I would have thought. Yeah, a true tragedy. So let's not take our eyes off of that. But the thing is to say about Baldwin himself, I felt a little bit sorry for him recently when that woman was harassing him. But he is famously, you know, it's very well documented, a complete arsehole, right? And how he's reacted to it in all sorts of ways, doing a pity tour and trying not to take responsibility. I've seen him a bunch of times essentially not take any responsibility. That's, again, sort of fairly morally reprehensible. Maybe that's going a bit far, but I think not. No, just fess up. Just say, a terrible thing happened, and I'm at least in some respects responsible. Yeah. And you know, what's wrong with doing that, Alec? What's the problem? What's your problem? Oh, is it because you're a complete narcissist, like an irredeemable narcissist? That's what it is. So no, F him.
Do you feel sorry, Culture?
Of course not. In as much as it's related to this case, I think a lot of poor decisions were made, and he probably likely, because of his position, was responsible for some of them. But I think that the culpability didn't lie in just two people. You know, the assistant director had already cut a deal, you know, going into this situation, and other people, you know, were obviously, you on hand that could have, prevented this from happening. It goes down to just very poor supervision on set and allowing for there to be live rounds.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Well, we will keep you up to date on this as it moves forward. It'll be an interesting thing for sure. We do have a super chat from Jay. He has chimed in here on Streamlabs. Thank you so much, guys. $5. And Jay says, you don't point an unloaded firearm or one loaded with blanks at a living being unless it's active film or photo. Pulling the trigger is still a conscious and intentional act. Yes. Knowing it's not loaded with lethal means, intention or intimate, not kill.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, the involuntary manslaughter thing, that's I think they've got him on that, but it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forwards, because that's the he said, she said thing with a gun.
They have now filed. This will be these last two are their third and fourth efforts to dismiss this case, if I remember correctly. So.
Yeah. It's been going on. Yeah. It's a lot. They've really tried. And that's what they're paid for. So kudos to them, I guess. They're giving it a good old try. But anyway, we'll move on now, guys. But we will keep you in the loop on that. I just want.